The bridge of the Harmonious Prospect hummed with the gentle efficiency that characterized all Galactic Union vessels. Commander Vexthal, a Quilarian whose iridescent carapace reflected the soft blue lighting, studied the holographic display with growing concern. The signal they'd intercepted 3 cycles ago pulsed with unmistakable urgency. A distress call, ancient in format but undeniably genuine. Analysis complete. Commander, announced Science Officer Threen, her 6 eye stalks swiveling toward the data stream. The signal originates from Sector 773, subsection Gamma. A planetary system. Remarkably primitive. Pre-warp civilization, possibly pre-industrial. Vexthal's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Under Union law, any distress signal demanded response regardless of origin. It was the foundation of galactic civilization, the principle that had united thousands of species under one banner of cooperation and mutual aid. No sentient being should suffer when help could be rendered. How long until we arrive? He asked. 18 standard hours, Commander. Prepare the Mercy protocols. Medical teams on standby, translation matrices ready, and keep our weapons powered down. We don't want to frighten them. Throughout the Harmonious Prospect, the crew moved with practiced efficiency. The Quilarians, Threen's people, the Voshanti, the crystalline Kelthir, all represented species that had themselves once been primitive, once been saved by the Union's compassion. Now they would pay that gift forward. In the medical bay, Dr. Reln adjusted his sensitive hearing organs as he reviewed xenobiology databases. Deathworld classifications scrolled past, Class 1 through Class 5. The higher the number, the more lethal the environment. Most Union species hailed from Class 1 or Class 2 worlds, stable climates, manageable predators, reasonable gravity. Doctor, his assistant called out, preliminary scans of the distress signals planet are concerning. Reln's ears perked forward. Concerning how? The atmospheric composition suggests a Class 4, possibly Class 5 environment. Oxygen levels at 21%, highly corrosive to most species. Extreme weather patterns, tectonic instability, and the biodiversity readings. The assistant's voice wavered. Thousands of apex predators. On a single world, Reln felt his blood chill. Class 5 death worlds were rare. Planets so hostile that survival required constant adaptation, where evolution carved inhabitants from the cruelest stone. Union policy regarding such worlds was clear. Observe from orbit, never interfere. The beings that evolved in such crucibles were dangerous, unpredictable, but this was a distress call. A cry for help. He hurried to the bridge, nearly colliding with a Kelthir engineer in the corridor. Commander Vexthal, we have a problem. The commander turned, his compound eyes reflecting Reln's agitation. Report. The planet, it's a Class 5 death world. Commander, we should reconsider our approach. Whatever species sent that signal, they evolved in conditions that would kill most of us in minutes. Vexthal considered this. Throughout the bridge, other officers had paused in their duties, listening. The Galactic Union had strict protocols regarding death worlds. First contact with such species required specialized teams, careful preparation, psychological evaluation of both parties. But the distress signal continued its lonely pulse across the void. The law is clear, Vexthal said finally. Distress signals demand response. We'll maintain extreme caution, but we will render aid. They called for help. We are bound to answer. The decision made, the crew returned to their preparations with renewed urgency. Hardened environment suits were distributed. Remote drones were programmed for initial contact. Every protocol designed for dangerous first contact situations was reviewed and rehearsed. As the Harmonious Prospect dropped from faster-than-light travel at the system's edge, the planet swam into view on the main display. It was beautiful in a savage way. Swirling blue oceans, green-brown continents, white clouds streaking across its face like scars. From this distance, it looked almost peaceful. Beginning system scan, Threen announced. Detecting, by the Founders. Her voice trailed off into stunned silence. Every officer turned to stare at the displays, now filling with data. The tactical officer, a young Quilarian named Jexith, spoke what they were all thinking. Commander, there are ships. Hundreds of ships. No, thousands. The displays showed them in stunning detail. Orbital platforms bristling with weapons. Defensive satellites in synchronized formations. And ships. Vessels that dwarfed the Harmonious Prospect. Their designs aggressive, purposeful, built not for exploration but for war. "They're powering weapons," the tactical officer reported, his voice cracking. "Multiple target locks on our position." "No, no, no," Dr. Reln whispered. "This can't be right." The signal was ancient. They should be primitive. But the evidence blazed across every screen. This was no primitive civilization crying out for salvation. This was a species that had clawed its way up from that hellish world and claimed the stars themselves. This was a species that had survived a Class 5 death world and emerged stronger for it. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. "Audio and visual." "It's..." "Commander, they're speaking a language not in our database, but their translation algorithm is more advanced than ours." "On screen," Vexthal ordered, his voice steady despite the fear pulsing through his system. The display shifted, showing a being that made every officer recoil. Bipedal. Forward-facing eyes. Predator's eyes, hair the color of shadow, and an expression that spoke of intelligence, danger, and something else, recognition. When the creature spoke, its words were translated instantly into flawless Union standard. "This is Admiral Chen of the United Terran Defense Fleet. You have entered human sovereign space. Identify yourselves immediately and explain why you've responded to a 70-year-old research beacon." The bridge fell silent. 70 years. Their urgent mercy mission, their noble response to a distress call, had been aimed at a decades-old research signal. And the species that had sent it had not remained helpless. Humanity, it seemed, had answered their own call for help. "Commander, Vexthal had participated in 43 first contact scenarios during his career with the Galactic Union. He'd met species that communicated through bioluminescence, civilizations that existed as collective consciousness, and beings whose biology defied every principle of known science. But never, not once, had he felt the primal spike of fear that now coursed through his system as he stared at Admiral Chen's face. Those eyes, predator's eyes, set forward for tracking prey with binocular precision, and behind them an intelligence that assessed, calculated, and prepared for violence with the efficiency of a species born in fire. "I am Commander Vexthal of the Galactic Union vessel Harmonious Prospect," he managed, fighting to keep his mandibles from chattering. "We intercepted what we believed to be a distress signal. We came to render aid." Admiral Chen's expression shifted. Was that amusement? Her lips curved in what the preliminary xenobiology analysis identified as a smile, though whether it signaled friendliness or aggression remained unclear. "A 70-year-old probe signal, and you came running." She leaned back in her chair, a gesture the translation software tagged as relaxation, although her eyes never stopped their predatory assessment. "Tell me, Commander, how many weapons does your ship carry?" The question caught Vexthal off guard. "We are a civilian research and aid vessel. We carry only defensive armaments as per Union Regulation 4. 24 plasma projectors, Class 3, Chen interrupted, reading from a display he couldn't see. 8 missile tubes, conventional warheads. Shield generators rated for sustained bombardment of approximately 40 minutes. And 1 experimental graviton beam that you've kept powered down since entering our system." She paused. "Did I miss anything?" Science Officer Threen's eye stalks had gone rigid with shock. "How did you—" "Our stealth protocols are adorable," Chen finished. "Commander Vexthal, let me be very clear. We've been tracking your approach since you entered the outer rim of this system. We've mapped your ship's architecture, identified your crew composition, and analyzed your propulsion signature. We know you're not a threat." Another smile, and this time there was warmth in it. "But we also know that if you were, you'd already be debris." Dr. Reln stepped forward, his medical curiosity overriding his fear. "Admiral Chen, if I may, your species evolved on a Class 5 death world. Your planet alone should have prevented you from developing spaceflight. The resource wars, the environmental catastrophes, the sheer lethality of your ecosystem. How did you survive?" For the first time, Chen's expression sobered. "Doctor, is it?" "Dr. Reln, according to your analysis. You want to know how we survived?" She stood, and even through the display, her presence was commanding. "We almost didn't. 12 times in recorded history, humanity came within a handful of years of extinction. Climate disasters, plagues, wars that turned continents to ash. And yes, Doctor, our planet tried to kill us every single day." She moved to a viewport behind her, and the camera followed. Through it, Earth turned in serene majesty. That beautiful, terrible world. "We survived because we learned something your peaceful Union species never had to learn. We learned that survival isn't about being the strongest or the fastest or having the thickest armor. It's about adaptation. It's about looking at a problem that should kill you and finding a way, any way, to turn it into an advantage. When the megafauna hunted us, we invented weapons. When disease threatened to wipe us out, we invented medicine. When our wars nearly destroyed us, we invented diplomacy, though I'll admit that one took us longer to figure out. Her laugh was short, sharp, and when we finally looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone, we built ships. Not because it was easy, because it was necessary. Commander Vexthal found himself leaning forward, captivated despite his fear. The Union has existed for 12,000 standard years, Admiral. We've brought peace to 4,000 worlds. In all that time, we've never encountered a species quite like yours. That's because you've been lucky, Chen replied. Or perhaps you've been careful. How many Class 5 death worlds has the Union made contact with? Threen checked her database. 7, well 8 now, including Earth. And the other 7? What happened to them? The silence that followed was damning. Finally, Vexthal answered. 6 remained pre-contact primitives. We observe but do not interfere. 1 achieved spaceflight, and the Union Council decided that quarantine was the safest option for all parties. Quarantine. Chen's voice went flat. You locked them away. Decided they were too dangerous to join your peaceful federation. Admiral, you must understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, Commander. Chen returned to her seat, her posture rigid. You saw a distress signal from a death world and came running. Because your laws demanded it. Noble, compassionate, exactly what a civilization should do. Her eyes locked onto Vexthal's. But now that you've seen what we are, now that you know we're not helpless primitives, waiting to be saved, you're wondering if you should call for that quarantine fleet, wondering if humanity is too dangerous to be allowed into your Union. The accusation hung in the air. Vexthal wanted to deny it, but he felt the fear pulsing through his crew, saw the way Jexith's hand hovered near the emergency beacon that would summon the Union Defense Fleet. I'm not going to lie to you, Admiral, Vexithal said finally. Yes, there will be those in the Union who fear humanity, who will see your weapons, your warships, your predatory evolution and want to keep you contained. He straightened, a gesture of respect that translated across species. But there will also be those who see what I see. A species that fought for survival and won. A species that could have destroyed us the moment we entered your system, but chose conversation instead. Admiral Chen studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Commander Vexthal, would you and your crew like to come aboard? I think it's time we had a proper conversation about what humanity can offer your Union, and what your Union can offer us. In the background, Earth continued its eternal rotation, a blue marble that had forged its children in crucibles of fire and ice, teaching them that the only way to survive was to never, ever give up. The Mercy mission had found no victims to save. Instead, it had found equals. The transport shuttle that carried Commander Vexthal and his delegation to the human flagship was unlike anything in the Union's database. Sleek, efficient, and equipped with technology that shouldn't exist, not for a species that had only achieved faster than light travel 40 years ago. They've compressed a millennium of technological development into 4 decades, Science Officer Threen whispered, her eye stalks tracking the exotic energy signatures around them. Commander, this violates everything we know about technological progression curves. Dr. Relm, despite his continued unease, couldn't suppress his scientific curiosity. It's the death world factor. They had to innovate or die. For them, advancement isn't leisurely. It's existential. The shuttle docked with a precision that spoke of military discipline. As the airlock cycled, Vexthal steeled himself. The atmosphere readings showed Earth-standard environment. High oxygen, nitrogen balance, temperature ranges that would be uncomfortable but survivable for most of his crew. For humans, it was home. Admiral Chen met them personally, flanked by 2 officers whose casual alertness reminded Vexthal of apex predators at rest. Relaxed, but capable of explosive action. She extended her hand, palm open, a human gesture the translation software identified as non-threatening. Welcome aboard the Indomitable, Commander. I promise we don't bite. Her smile suggested humor, though her teeth, flat in front, pointed at the corners, told an evolutionary story of omnivorous adaptability. Much The tour that followed shattered every assumption Vexthal had held about primitive Deathworld species. The ship's medical bay housed technology that could regenerate tissue, cure diseases, and repair genetic damage, achievements the Union had taken millennia to perfect. The engineering sections hummed with power cores that bent the laws of physics in ways that made Threen's eye stalks quiver with excitement and horror in equal measure. But it was the memorial wall that stopped Vexthal. Cold names, thousands upon thousands of names, etched into black stone that seemed to absorb light. Human names, yes, but also others. Designations and scripts he recognized from Union species. Quilarian, Voshanti, even Kelthir crystalline notation. "We've met your Union before," Chen said quietly, watching his reaction. "Small expeditions, scout ships, research vessels that stumbled into our space over the past 20 years. She traced a finger along one section of names. These were the ones who didn't run screaming when they saw us. The ones who stayed long enough to learn that Deathworlders aren't monsters, just survivors. They never reported contact," Vexthal said, his voice hollow. "No, because we asked them not to." Admiral Chen turned to face him fully. "We needed time, Commander. Time to prepare. Time to prove to ourselves that we could control the violence bred into us by that beautiful hell of a planet. Time to decide who we wanted to be when we finally stepped onto the galactic stage." She gestured to a viewport where Earth hung in space, and around it, the vast orbital infrastructure of human civilization. "Do you know what the hardest thing about being a Deathworlder is, Commander? It's not the survival instinct. It's not the aggression or the territorial impulses or the fact that our first response to threats is usually violence." She paused, and for a moment Vexthal saw something profound in her eyes. Something that looked like pain, or perhaps wisdom earned through terrible cost. "The hardest thing is choosing to be better than our programming. Every day humanity fights a war you peaceful species never had to fight. A war against our own nature. And every day we win. Not because we're saints. Because we're stubborn." Dr. Reln stepped forward, his medical training overcoming his hesitation. "Admiral, with respect, your species has been space-capable for barely 4 decades. You've had 17 major conflicts in that time. We've monitored your transmissions. How can you claim you've mastered your violent nature when you're still fighting each other?" Chen's laugh was bitter. 17 conflicts in 40 years. "Doctor, before we achieved spaceflight, we had 17 conflicts every year, sometimes every month." She pulled up a holographic display showing human history, a timeline of wars, genocides, near extinctions that made several of the delegation members recoil in horror. "This is what we were. This is the price of being forged on a death world. But look." She expanded the timeline to show the space age. "The conflicts are shorter, less deadly, more often resolved through negotiation. We're learning, Doctor. Slowly, painfully, but we're learning." "And if the Union refuses to believe you?" Vexthal asked. "If they vote for quarantine?" For the first time, Admiral Chen's expression hardened. "Then they'll have to enforce it. And Commander, I promise you, we've run those simulations. The Union would win eventually. Your technology is mature, your force is vast, your experience in warfare spans millennia." She leaned forward. "But we'd make you pay for every light year. Because that's what Deathworlders do, we make our enemies pay." The threat hung in the air, cold and undeniable. Then Chen's expression softened and she straightened. "But I'd rather not fight. I'd rather show your Union what humanity can offer. Our medical technology. We've conquered diseases you've struggled with for centuries. Our agricultural methods, we can turn wastelands into gardens because we learned on a world where every meter of arable land was precious. Our military technology. Yes, we excel at warfare, but imagine that expertise protecting Union space from external threats." She gestured to the memorial wall again. "These individuals, your people, saw what we could be. They believed in us enough to become ambassadors. Unofficial, yes, but ambassadors nonetheless. They taught us your customs, your laws, your dreams of a peaceful galaxy." Chen's smile returned, genuine and warm. "We want to join that dream, Commander. Not as conquerors, not as threats to be contained, but as equals, as partners, as proof that even a species born in hell can reach for heaven." Vexthal looked at his crew. He saw fear, yes, but also wonder, possibility. The chance to welcome a species unlike any other. Dangerous, certainly, but capable of such extraordinary adaptation and growth. "Admiral Chen, I cannot promise the Union Council will agree to immediate membership. There will be debates, assessments, probably years of diplomatic negotiation. We're patient. We've waited 4 billion years to meet you. We can wait a few more. But, Vexthal continued, his mandibles spreading in what his species used as a smile, I can promise them my testimony. I will tell them that humanity is not a threat to be contained, but an opportunity to be embraced. That Deathworlders, given the chance, can teach us all something about survival, adaptation, and the stubborn refusal to give up. Chen extended her hand again, and this time, Vexthal took it. Her grip was strong. Too strong, speaking of muscles evolved to fight gravity and predators and 1,000 other deadly challenges. But it was also controlled, measured, speaking of a will that had learned to temper strength with wisdom. To new beginnings, she said.